Around 10,500 years ago, rising sea levels separated Tasmania from the Australian mainland and created an island. Here, in this unique and isolated environment, vast tracts of temperate wilderness, dense rainforest, horizontal scrub and fast-flowing rivers made it difficult to penetrate inland. For the earliest inhabitants, the main food source was the sea. Over generations, on the coastal strips of this new island, people built communities glued together by an abundant supply of seafood. Communities, food and sea haven't changed. Modern-day hunters and gatherers just use different methods. This is the southern end of the D'Entrecasteaux Channel, just south of the Huon Valley, on the head of Port Esperance. The village here, known from the mid-1850s as Port Esperance, was rechristened Dover in 1895. Most of the houses overlook the three small islands of Faith, Hope and Charity. This is a place of attractive beaches and unspoilt charm, with a population of just under 1,000 people. It's also the southernmost town of its size in Australia, and around 80 kilometres from the capital of Hobart.
Dover exists in this spot for one reason only. It's an ideal port. And in the seas, just south of this place, is a Tasmanian commercial fishery that's been operating here for generations, stocked in abundance with the world's best seafood. All over this episode, we're going to search right across Tasmania looking for these, the Tasmanian Southern Rock Lobster.
How long is a generation? In Glen's case, 150 years.
I've been fishing, well, pretty much since I've been out to walk with my father. I've always gone out in the boat with my father, squidding and sharking and crying. Sort of just leaving school, it was a bit of a shock. I got out there and it was hard work, it was real hard work. The technologies we've got these days just getting better and better. I mean, all the stuff we've got plotters, sounders, 3D bottom mapping systems, we've got satellite TVs, we've got satellite compasses. It makes fishing a lot more easy than it used to be.
No matter how good the technology, there's nothing beats experience.
I've been fishing now for about 53 going on 54 years and don't regret one of them. I have two sons that are now fishing and I believe they have sons that will continue on, so we're up to about 5 generations of fishermen. Crayfishing actually contributes a lot to the economy. By straight out employment in the fishing industry, it probably employs quite a few thousand of people right through the state with deckhands and factory workers. It comes down to like fuel suppliers, grocery suppliers, mechanics for breakdowns. Man, there's some good people out there as well.
Oh, the weather forecasting these days, it's pretty good. You know, before we plan a trip, we always get on the internet and look up the 7-day forecast, and you can also look at the the isometric map from underneath the planet, which gives you a good idea of what's coming. How do you cope being a family man at sea? It's pretty hard, and it's hard on the wives too, because when the weather's good, you've got to go fishing, even though you know there might be a birthday or something like that coming up. Your mind's got to be on the job as far as safety for you, safety for the crew, making sure that your boat's ship shape. Do I eat a lot of lobster? No, I don't, because well, I never used to like them when I was younger, but now I do. But then it's you know, it's cutting into your income.
Once known locally as the pretty city with the mountain and the fountain, Hobart is now the home port for the Antarctic activities of Australia and France, and a hub for cruise ships during the summer months. Hobart also supports a huge tourist industry. Visitors come to the city to explore its history and acclaimed restaurants and cafes. Tourists also come to visit the massive weekly market in Salamanca Place, as well as to use the city as a base from which to explore the rest of Tasmania. Over the last 20 years, Hobart has built a thriving wine industry, with numerous vineyards in countryside areas outside of the city. And here in Victoria Dock, it's home to the largest lobster fishing fleet in the state.
Hobart is very much a port city, and nothing makes that more apparent than the 4 lanes of inbound traffic behind me, Davey Street. It's one of Hobart's most busy arterial roads, and at times it's very noisy and very congested. And yet, here, not 5 metres from the tarmac, is Victoria Dock, home of the Hobart crayfishing fleet. And at times, it's almost like these boats could literally step out of the water, jump onto the road, and mix it with the traffic.
Most people fishing for lobster have been there a long time, and Industry Executive Officer John Sansom is no exception.
I started fishing in 1975, so I've been doing it for a long time, nearly 40 years. I did start as a deckhand, and after my first trip I swore I'd never go again.
John explains how fishermen can help look after the resource.
The Clean Green program is a voluntary program where fishermen take responsibility for what they do in the industry. It covers a raft of subjects, including people's environmental responsibilities, their responsibilities to their worker in the workforce, food safety, animal welfare. Now, the fishermen sign on to this, they do a training course, they are audited on their own vessels, and they sign on to a set of standards. Translocation is an innovative management strategy that literally allows us to increase the productivity of the fishery without catching any more fish. Now, in Tasmania we have a unique system where in the south of the state fish grow at a very, very, very slow rate, whilst in the northern end of the state they grow at an extremely fast rate. So in order to increase productivity, we can harvest fish in the south at less than minimum legal size, move them to the north of the state and have them grow very, very quickly and even actually change their colour to suit the market. The fishing industry is like a lot of other natural resources. It has its ups and its downs, and our job really as managers is to smooth out those ups and downs so that we get a smooth ride.
How sustainable is the fishery? Let's ask the world's leading research scientist on southern rock lobster, Caleb Gardner.
You have an area out the front here where you have a little bit of fishery going on. What do you do there?
Well, that's right. So we have an area here which fishing, well, so other people are not allowed to fish in there basically. People can go diving and snorkeling, and we get a lot of school groups come through and snorkel in there, but all the lobsters and abalone in there can't be harvested. So what that means for us is this is our little experiment, a little sort of set population of animals that we can test things out on before we try rolling things out to the wider fishery. Yeah.
Now, there is a quota management system in place, is there not, for lobster?
That's right. So, and what a quota management fishery means, it means that there's a limit on the amount of catch that can be taken by the commercial fishers every year, and they can't take a kilogram above that, basically.
Right.
So,
what do you think the industry's worth to Tasmania, to the Tasmanian economy?
Well, so the gross value of the fishery is about, this commercial fishery, about $70 million. We've got a very scarce product. The market would like to have a whole lot more of it, but we limit the amount of production, and that means that for every dollar that's generated from this fishery, there's a lot more sort of economic benefit for the state than what you would get for your typical industry.
We're on the northwest tip of Tasmania, and this is a very pretty and picturesque spot. If you're of a mind, you can jump into Bass Strait and swim to Victoria. We're quite close. They've kayaked it. This is one of the prettiest villages of all the fishing villages across the state, and that landmark over my right shoulder should pretty well give it away where we are. It is, of course, Stanley.
Stanley was first settled around 1826. The most distinctive landmark is the Nut, a 143-metre volcanic plug discovered in 1798 by the explorers Bass and Flinders. Its wide streets lined with cottages and gardens awash with flowers lend the place a distinct charm that modern development hasn't managed to ruin. The port, with its small fleet of lobster boats, provides an excellent fishing spot, and this wonderful collection of shops, cottages and municipal buildings sit under the shadow of the ever-dominant nut. But since things began 170 years ago, fishing is still the talk of the town.
My father was a fisherman, and his father, mainly his brothers were fishermen. He had an older brother, 22 years older than him. He was one of the pioneers of the fishing industry. And you know, that's where the association with the sea began.
I've lived in Stanley. I was born here 90 years ago. And when we first started lobster fishing, we could buy our licence for £5. We couldn't even make a living crayfishing. But now, my word, there's the money made with the crayfishery today.
My dad built an 80-foot boat in 1963 called the Cindy Hardy, and that was a big boat, you know, in our lobster fishery or our fishing industry. And my dad had the vision of fishing the west coast, and he wanted a big boat to do it with.
When I set her up, I put a poop deck on her, and they always reckoned I was building a Spanish galleon because of the way that I had the accommodation built up on the stern of her. Even the last years that I was fishing, when I'd spell an area which I had in my mind, I'd go back and you could catch crayfish always like the Virgin Country.
Where was this area then?
West of Tasmania. That's where some of my secrets are going to die with me.
That stretch of water there behind me marks the site of another Tasmanian fishing community, and it's one of the biggest crayfishing regions in the state of Tasmania. But it's the water we're particularly interested in because that little stretch of water there has been responsible for more deaths and destruction of fishing boats and pleasure craft than anywhere in Tasmania. Very, very dangerous place. And because it's the Bar, and because we're on Tasmania's east coast, we are of course in St Helens.
A 2-hour drive from the northern city of Launceston, St Helens boasts a large fishing port renowned for its lobster catch and as a popular destination for recreational fishermen.
Oh, I think it's a great lifestyle, being on the ocean and the things you can see that a lot of people don't get to. I hope I can hand it on to my sons and make them a third generation fisherman. And it does concern me at times whether it will happen or not, but if we keep the trend the way it is and leave things alone, I think we might have a sustainable industry for years to come.
Fishing is important to St Helens, but so are visitors looking for a place to stay. And when you're planning to stay in St Helens, or using the place as a jumping off point for what this beautiful part of Tasmania has on offer, the place to stay is Homelea. The name is a nice play on words, and that wordplay lives up to expectations. You can relax in a very comfortable, self-contained apartment with various sleeping arrangements within. Inside, there's everything you need, and you can park right outside your door. There's a barbecue area and a really good playground for the kids, with lots of space for the nippers to run around in. Step outside and you're within walking distance to St Helens Wharf and its seafood restaurants, jetty fishing and the Main Street shops. Hop in the car and it's a short drive to St Helens Point and the spectacular Perryman Dunes and any number of ocean beaches that attract surfers and sand lovers alike. Homelea is also close to the perfect sandy beaches and lichen-covered granite boulders of Binalong Bay and the Bay of Fires. Homelea really is the perfect place to stay when you're exploring the wonders of Tasmania's east coast. The west coast village of Strahan was founded in 1881 and named after a Scottish peer. Strahan has a convict past. It was home to Sarah Island, the notorious penal settlement that garnered the reputation as the harshest of its kind in the Australian colonies. In modern times, the town is now base for boat trips to the lower Gordon River and is an access point to the Franklin-Gordon Wild Rivers National Park, declared part of the Tasmanian Wilderness World Heritage Area in 1982. Strahan is also port to a small lobster fishing fleet that braves the notorious West Coast weather conditions and Hell's Gates, the entrance to Macquarie Harbour.
We're on Tasmania's west coast, and it's an area renowned for its beauty, rugged scenery, mountains, rivers, lakes. But the fishing here is tricky because it's known as the Wild West. Not because there are parties and saloons and cowboys, but because of this weather. As you can see, it's a pretty moody day today. And about half an hour ago, the rain was coming down in sheets, it was windy, it was terrible. But the fishing here is very good. And it started here years and years ago in that little village over there, Strahan.
The reason I got into fishing was I've always loved the ocean, loved the sea, the fishing. So when I first came to Strahan, there was really only two job opportunities if you wanted to make any reasonable money. One was mining, the other one was fishing. And when a job came up on a local boat, I jumped at it. It's no different than any other job. You take the good with the bad. On some real rough days, you know, when the fish aren't running or the weather is really bad, you think to yourself, you know, what am I doing out here? But you tend to forget those days, you know. It's always the good days that stick in your memory, and when you get a perfect day out there, there's nothing better. Well, the dangers of fishing here on the west coast, the weather obviously, which can change very quickly. There's still times when you get caught in bad weather out there and big seas, so you still got to be very careful. You can't take the sea for granted, simple as that. The major concerns for me for the rock lobster fishery in the future are, one, global warming. Whether you believe in it or not, things are definitely changing out there as far as the water temperatures going up. We're seeing species of fish that have never been seen here before that are coming down from up north. The acidity of the ocean's going up. It's been going up at a far greater rate than it has done in the last 100 years, which really affects the thickness of the shells on crustaceans. So definitely concerns the rock lobster industry. And those are factors that we've got no control over.
The seafood here on King Island is absolutely magnificent, and it's not hard to see why. All around us there's this rich, alive, dark, cold water, and it produces magnificent animals. I mean, look at the crayfish here, for instance. Absolutely beautiful. Some of these are 2.5, 3 kilos, and that's not uncommon. And to find out a little bit more, we'll talk to Donna.
The predominant role of our company on King Island is the facilitating the movement and transfer of lobster from the fishermen through to a processor, usually in Victoria. King Island is currently landing about 19 to 20% of the total allowable catch for Tasmania. My husband got me into the industry on King Island. I think I went down to help do some bookwork one day, and that was 20 years ago.
The sea has always been a source of food. Long before agriculture and land-based farming, its bounty has sustained humanity from our earliest moments through to the advent of civilization. Moving into the 21st century, the care and management of this bounty has never been more important. Today, Southern Rock Lobster is internationally regarded as a premium dining experience, the finest seafood in the world. The Tasmanian Southern Rock Lobster underscores what is, by any standard, a highly successful fishery. It's a fantastic good news story based on a sustainable and renewable resource. In China, Southern Rock Lobster is described as having much fame and is paid the highest compliment by being called the dragon shrimp.
So, what have I done with this dragon shrimp with much fame? Not a lot really. This is a fish you can do a lot with. And here on this Tasmanian beach where it's been caught, cooked and eaten for thousands of years, taking that firm white flesh, throwing it in a pan just of melted butter and then slapping it into a roll with some butter is hard to beat. And with careful management, it's something we'll all be able to do, both now and on into the future.